To get started, you're going to lay your pieces of fabric wrong sides together with your batting and sew an X across both pieces. When you bring it over to your machine, make sure you change your stitch length to a top stitch length. I use 4.0. And again, you're going to sew diagonally an X across both of your pieces, sewing your cotton fabric and your batting pieces together. You'll repeat this for the other side of the X. And there's no need to backstitch at the start or the stop. Repeat this for your other piece. Now that you have your pieces sewn together, you're going to fold them in half, right sides together, matching up your corners and smoothing out the fold. You will need to mark 1 inch up the side and 2 inches along the fold, and I use this template that I had somebody make for me, which I will link down below where you can get yours. And I use this just to line up where my marks are going to be. Once I get it in place, I mark the end with my fingernail and I know the straight line to sew along. I change my stitch length back to 2.4 for a more durable stitch, and I backstitch at the start and at the stop on all of my darts. Now you're just going to repeat this process for the opposite side. So along the fold, it's 2 inches, and up the edge, the raw edge, is 1 inch, and you connect the 2 points. And again, I use my little template, mark it with my fingernail, and backstitch at the start and at the stop. Now that you have the 2 darts sewn together, you're going to open it up, and now you're going to put the opposite sides together. And again, match up your corners, match up those seams that you just sewed, straighten out your fold, and then repeat the process of sewing those darts just like you did before. Again, 2 inches along the fold, 1 inch up, and connect the 2 points. By using my template, I use my fingernail to have my point, backstitch at the start and at the stop. Repeat it for the other side. Again, make sure you're flattening out your fold, matching up your corners, and then repeating the process. Next, you want to make sure that you're clipping off the excess of the corners that you just sewed in place. And the purpose of this is just to decrease some of the bulk when you turn these right side out. So you want to make sure that you're cutting close to your seam. However, make sure you do not clip the stitches of your seam. And now you're going to repeat the process for your other piece. Once you have both pieces all sewn together with your darts and your corners trimmed, you're going to turn one side right side down, matching up your right sides together, and then ensuring that all of your seams match up and your raw edges also match up in all the corners. You're going to end up sewing all the way around with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure that you leave about a 2 to 3 inch gap to allow you to have space to turn your cozy right side out. When I sew mine, I start just before one of the side seams to allow space for where I can eventually place my branding tag. So if you don't have a branding tag, I would still go just on one side of a seam to make sure that you're able to sew all the way over a corner to allow you space in between the two to be able to turn it right side out. Make sure that you're backstitching at the start and the stop of the stitching. For projects like this, I tend to not use clips or pins, but feel free to if you feel more comfortable holding your materials together. I just ensure as I'm sewing along to make sure that everything is lined up properly. And it is good to take caution when you are sewing over these seams because they are a little bit on the thicker side. So just go slowly, and if you need to, you can use your hand wheel to go slowly over those seams. Now here's where I'm getting to where I began. So I'm only going to sew in about an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch while backstitching. And again, this will allow my space to turn this right side out. Before turning it right side out, you want to clip your corners to decrease any of that bulk. And if you do have any side pieces that are a little bit excessive, you may want to trim those as well. And then you're going to take your cozy and turn it right side out by reaching through that opening that you left, which is why it was important for you to backstitch at the start and the stop. I just grab the opposite corner and then work it on its way through, and it does take a little bit of force at times, but just be patient and you'll be able to get it to turn right side out in no time. Then you want to just make sure that you're pressing out all of those corners so that they are nice and poked out as much as they can be. And then I'm just folding over that raw seam and making sure that those side edges line up. I here am using a set of key fob pliers to flatten out those seams so that when I go to top stitch all around, it will just be a little bit easier for my machine to manage sewing over those seams. You can just try to finger press them down. You may not even need to do this at all if you have a machine that can manage many layers of materials. So just be sure that that seam is folded down and that your side edges are well aligned. I'm just getting my needle down in place using the hand wheel so that it holds in place. Now I'm increasing my stitch length to a 4.0 for my top stitch to be able to go all the way around. As you're starting to stitch, you may need to use a stiletto or these needle nose tweezers to get it started because it does have a tendency to want to get stuck. But once you get it started, you do want to backstitch as well. Next, I'm just getting my branding tag folded over so that I can get that slid in between the seam that we are sewing over, making sure that it's parallel to the edge of the cozy. Next, I'm just sewing about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. When I get to the corner, I leave my needle down and then turn it 90 degrees to continue on the opposite side. And I'm just going to continue doing this all the way around until I get back to where I started, and I will do a backstitch at the end. Next, all you need to do is trim off your end threads, get them out of the way, and then you get to admire what you've just created. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you all being here. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel as well as all my other socials so that you don't miss any other tutorials that I will be posting. Thanks again, and keep crafting!